Hi, I'm Jillian Einstein. I'm the lead of the Women's Sex, Gender, and Dementia Cross-Cutting Program of the CCNA. I'm a professor in the Department of Psychology at the University of Toronto. I'm also appointed at Baycrest at the Rotman Research Institute, and I'm the Wilfred and Joyce Postlins Chair in Women's Brain Health and Aging. So you already get a sense of what I'm really interested in. Um, as a brief description of the WSGD, the point of it is to help the CCNA bring the sex and gender lens to dementia research on a national basis by putting sex and gender into the work and the research of every team, platform, and initiative of the CCNA, and to fund teams to specifically add sex and or gender analysis to their research and to look at those variables. To do this, we want to raise the bar on the WSGD's contribution by also asking the questions, why are there sex differences in the different forms of dementia? And what is it about women's lives, gender, and their health, sex, up until dementia that tips the burden of AD toward women? So we want to engage with every team, program, and platform to consider sex and gender. We want to develop a group to ask the question, what factors contribute to the sex differences and gender differences in the dementias? And we want the WSGD to be a training hub, really, for postdoctoral fellows and graduate students about the sex and gender component in the science of aging and dementia. If you submit a paper, a manuscript, for example, for publication, first it goes to the PDAC committee, and the PDAC committee sends it to your team, sex and gender champion, to look at, to see if sex and gender have been treated at all, and if so, treated properly in your report. And you will get back and actually a paper with comments and suggestions, I hope, for you to be able to do that better. And that's a form of training. We also participate in the Synapse Awards, which we have done now for 2 years with sex and gender top-ups from the WSGD. If people were traveling, we would have competitive travel awards. We had a competitive group of awards for teams wanting to add sex and gender to their work, and you may have been part of that. And we also have webinars and their resources on our webpage. So we really want to engage CCNA experts in sex and gender, as well as outside experts in advising us into how we can make this cross-cutting program more useful, more lively, more robust in bringing the sex and gender lens to dementia research. Why? Well, did you know that 2/3 of the people with Alzheimer's disease are women? And yet, preclinical models are most often male. Clinical trials don't usually disaggregate their data by sex and study how females responded as opposed to males. Databases don't really have reproductive health information in them, either about men or women. Some important reproductive health information that we're collecting in Compass ND is whether or not the women have ever taken hormones, whether they've been on birth control, whether they're currently on hormone therapy. We're asking about lifetime conditions like ovarian removal before they would naturally go into menopause, polycystic ovarian syndrome, all of these. And in fact, the female athlete triad, which leads to a loss of menstruation, may be an important contributor to women's lifetime risk of Alzheimer's disease, but we don't know that unless we ask the question. So we're trying to get people to ask that question. And to help you, I've got 3 core references that might be useful to you. One is a reference by Nabila et al., 2018, Understanding the Impact of Sex and Gender in Alzheimer's Disease, a call to action, which was in Alzheimer's and Dementia. Subranipiali, Alme, Raja, and Einstein, 2020, Sex and Gender Differences in Cognitive and Brain Reserve, Implications for Alzheimer's Disease Research. And this came out in Frontiers in Neuroendocrinology. It's really important to start thinking about whether there's sex differences in cognitive reserve or not. And I'd also point you to an incredibly important resource put out by the Institute of Gender and Health at CIHR, the Sex and Gender Online Training Modules. And you can find those at CIHR. What am I reading right now? Well, I'm reading a really great book called The Alzheimer's Conundrum. It's by Margaret Locke, who is a medical anthropologist, and she asks questions about Alzheimer's disease, about its biology, its placement in the social world, its construct, its historical construct as a disease. And she even does ethnographies of our own Howard Churchkow's clinic at the Lady Douglas hospital, looking at mild cognitive impairment. So it's a fascinating work, and I recommend it. Well written, great questions. Just want to make sure it's in focus for you. And on the cover, interestingly enough, this picture here is by an Alzheimer's disease sufferer who was an artist. And it documents kind of how his self-portraits changed over time that he had Alzheimer's disease. So I recommend this book to you. It's a great read. So what's the best way to get in touch with me if you have a question? And I'd love to answer any of your questions. It's to email me at jillian.einstein@utoronto.ca. Please be in touch with me and check out our lab website, the Einstein Lab, and also check out our site for the WSGD on the CCNA webpage. Take care. Thanks.